Hello and welcome to another episode of Dance Teachers Academy. I am your host, Jose on the mic, and with me as always is the lovely, amazing dancer, Amay. How are you doing, girl?
I am doing great, and I am super excited to have our dear friend, Jean, who's an excellent dancer, coach, and life coach, has just written a book, and it's very, very important, I feel, for people to have this knowledge so that they can, because the name of this podcast, I'd like to be How to Live with Passion and Purpose After Sexual Abuse. We're going to go right into this topic.
Pretty deep subject right now.
I know.
So Jean Dorff, what do you say?
Good to be here. It's not only that I wrote a book, but it's actually published, right?
Yay!
So
which is the most important thing.
Congratulations.
Well,
Congratulations.
So 2 weeks ago, it was launched on Amazon.com.
So it's available at Amazon?
And the digital version is available right
Awesome.
now. And actually, can I say that? We have a special
Yes.
promo for first readers. It's only 99 cents.
Right, that's a heck
in
of
a
a
few
deal.
weeks, we do the hard launch, so to speak.
Yes.
Oh, cool.
And then the printed version and the digital version will be available at normal price.
All righty.
I'm super excited.
I'll go ahead and
this is
set
your
that up.
own, yes, this is your own story too. So, I mean, it's a great accomplishment, not just because, just to write a book, hello, is a great accomplishment and have it published.
Yeah.
But
Radar
the-
accomplishment.
Yes, but I think the greatest accomplishment is the fact that you have, this is something I'm going to take from you because you talk about how to thrive instead of survive after childhood sexual abuse. This is a very hard topic to discuss, and the
It is.
fact that you were so transparent about your own experience, I really think you are extremely courageous.
Well,
Without a doubt.
Thank you for that. I feel it a little bit, to be honest. There's no bad to feel courageous, but we sometimes also don't know where this.
It's live, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, it's live. I'm so
Please
sorry.
silence your phone,
Yeah,
John.
Yes. Well, okay. So it's my own story, but the story in itself, unfortunately, is not so rare, right? The story
Well,
itself.
that is the unfortunate
Yeah,
point of that.
it's a lot. It's it's you've heard the numbers, but you might not remember them. But we have 600,000 victims of sexual abuse yearly. In
600,000 a year.
a year in Europe and the US
You're
together.
talking about children.
That's all sexual abuse.
Oh,
That's
okay.
not only. That's
Okay.
excluding domestic violence, by the way. So I mean,
Oh,
it's a
wow.
huge number,
Yes.
and I picked that number for various reasons because we probably talked now for about 4 or 5 minutes already on the podcast. So that means 5 new victims because 600,000 a year means roughly a minute a new victim. So that kind of puts things a little bit in perspective.
Yeah, it
right?
does. That's
Yeah.
tragic.
So my story in itself is not so unique, unfortunately. I wish it was a unique story. It's maybe unique that a guy writes a book about it.
Yes, but I think, would you agree with me that it's almost harder for a man to talk about this than a lady? I'm not trying to say anything about that it's
Yeah.
not as important for ladies. Of course, I'm not saying that. But because of just the way that our, the role of a man, the role of a woman, what do you think?
Traditional. I never experienced whether it was harder for me or my sister who went through the same thing.
Wow, really?
Yes, our whole family was affected by it, and
Wow.
but I know what you're getting at. To come out of it, so to speak, to speak
To
about
say
it for
something,
men is
yes.
often, harder. A lot of men are kind of emotionally broken a little bit. They have a harder time to express and to talk about their emotions.
Yeah, we had
Not
that
dances,
social.
obviously.
You got that social stigma that you have as a man.
That too,
You're supposed to be, Superman basically.
Yeah, and in my work as a life coach and as a dancer, I actually notice quite a bit of differences between how some Northern European countries handle with these topics, men, and for instance in more conservative states as where I happily live in Texas, but we are maybe a little bit more traditional. I try always to be a little bit more careful, but in church I met a lot of men who were really afraid to admit it because often it happened by another man. And for them to have sex with another man was almost something they could not admit to.
Or probably not could handle
You couldn't
mentally,
handle, right? Because it would
Yeah.
it disturbs your sexuality for sure.
Yes.
But then in a more conservative regions, like, you know, you also see that with Middle Eastern men. They have a very hard time to admit to sexual abuse, and it happens a lot there. I don't even know the exact numbers there, but it happens a lot there too. So it's a yucky topic. It's very hard to
Yucky, that's putting it mildly.
But so much now in so many people coming out with their stories, and with the Olympic team, the female gymnasts, and that big story coming out. Now more and more people discussing it, which I think is important. And I think, first of all, it's probably very healing. Would you say to first of all start to talk about it?
Yeah, definitely. It's you know, one of the things in the book writes about 5 phases you hopefully can go through as a sexual abuse victim. That starts from telling your story all the way up to healing is maybe a big loaded word, but at least to deal with it in a way that it doesn't bother you in your normal life so much anymore, right? So one of the things that I say, and so I like to quote myself here, is, you know, tell your story, but don't become your story. So I mean, that's a big difference, right?
Yes.
So for a while as a victim, I was almost my story. And so this is a tricky part, because as a man on the other side, if you tell your story, you get a lot of attention, which is pretty nice, especially if you're a performer like me. We like attention, right?
Okay.
And then you start to wonder yourself, do I tell all this stuff more to get attention? You know, so you can get addicted, strangely enough, to being a victim, right? And a lot of people in several areas.
That's a little different view.
Yeah, but a lot of people we use that in layman terms often, right? Oh man, this person plays the victim. And you probably know some people who constantly play the victim.
Yes.
It's all come to the same thing, but this is a big topic. And I noticed in myself that I actually did it at times. I got so much attention, you know, especially from the other side, because a lot of women thought, oh my gosh, so poor boy, maybe we should give him a little bit more extra care. And
This is one thing that I do appreciate about you, Jean, is that you are boldly honest. So there's some people that would not dare even say that. They may think it, but they wouldn't. So you really look into yourself, and are honest with yourself, so that's good. And you talk about boldly honest. The way you start your book is, bam, right into the story. Would you like to read the first part?
It would be an honor to do this on your podcast, guys. So I appreciate a lot being here. Before I forget to say that,
no, absolutely.
I listened to almost all episodes, and if I had a little bit backlog, I save them and go back again. And it's amazing what dancers the stories they have.
Yes.
So I'm proud to be in that lineup, so to speak, of dancers with a story. Now I wish my story was a little bit more funny, but I have a lot of cute dance stories too, just in case you want to interview. Invite me for
anytime
to a lighter topic, right? All right, so let's do the first chapter, not the intro, and why I started the book. So I hope our listeners and viewers would also know the reasons why I wrote the book, right? There's a specific reason. Maybe we can talk about it later.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely, get on it, man.
So the book is called Broken Silence: Living with Passion and Purpose After Sexual Abuse, and then a dancer story, because it's a story from a dancer. I call myself a dancer, right? So chapter 1, my story. What if the ones who should give you protection are the ones you need protection from? That first time. It was a hot summer day in July. There was no school and the weather was nice. A little too hot maybe. It was quiet outside. Besides the laughter of the playing children, there were almost no sounds. I guess most people tried to find some coolness in the shade or in the houses. It must have been right afternoon when he asked me to follow him upstairs into the bedroom. I was a little nervous and felt the summer heat in the small bedroom. He closed the curtains to keep the sun and the heat out. As he said, from the bedroom window on the second floor, I saw glimpses of my brother and my cousin playing in the backyard. They were outside, and my uncle and I had the time to ourselves. Little chance that we were going to be disturbed. With a smile, he looked at me and invited me to lay next to him in bed. The bed was too small for 2 people, but that didn't matter much. He must have known that it was my first time. He didn't rush anything. The softness and saltiness of his lips made me forget where I was. And when I felt his hand all over me, I forgot everything. The sounds outside, the warmth of the summer, it all disappeared. He covered my face with his kisses. He was gentle. I only heard his voice and the sweet tender sounds of his words, calming me and telling me that it was all okay. It was strange to feel his skin on mine. He hushed me and said, "Let's be real quiet." It was a different playing than I expected, but I wanted to trust him, so I nervously followed his lead. His hands were going down, and I started to be afraid. Again he said that it was all okay, but it didn't feel okay. Maybe because it was all new for me. Maybe because it was the daytime, and we were in bed. Maybe because the children from outside could come running in any moment. Or maybe, just maybe, because I was only 7 years old, and he was my uncle. So that's the start of
How to get your attention? Wow.
So and you know, we spoke about it about a year ago. Yeah, and,
yes.
and I was writing this and some people kind of read my story and
Yes.
some of them said, "Man, it's not personal enough." And I said, "What do you mean not personal enough? I mean, I just poured my heart out here, right?"
No kidding.
And one of the things that I try to also achieve with this opening is it was not all bad. Even if I was 7, I kind of also enjoyed it. But it was very hard to admit. It's really much easier to say my uncle was all evil and he did only bad things to me. He did a lot of bad things to me and he should have never done it. I mean,
Correct.
in hindsight,
Yes,
you
yes.
know, let's be clear on that.
But that's part of the confusion for a child because
Also for older sexual abuse victims.
true.
They all get
This is
into this trap.
confusing,
Did
yeah.
I do something? The parts that I liked, you know, there is.
Like, is there something wrong with
Is there
me?
something wrong with me?
Yeah.
And that we go into the topic in the book a lot. But all sexual abuse victims, not rape victims, but sexual abuse victims all go through. I mean, of course, rape is also a form of sexual abuse.
Sure,
but
absolutely, yeah.
pure, you know, street rape is a whole different thing. I talk a little bit about it, but that's not the topic of the book.
And
But-
you said you had a purpose in writing the book, and you
I
wanted
had
to talk
a,
about
I had a
that.
purpose of writing the book. First of all, I wanted to bring the story out, and that's maybe a little bit of a selfish purpose. You know, I'm a performer and a dancer, and I like attention and audience. It's me. We live for that. I mean, it would be really weird to be a dancer and saying I don't like audience, right? You can relate to that. And,
Whatever do you
yeah,
mean?
it's like, I mean, same with the podcast, right? If you have no
Dancer,
listeners, you probably think, yeah, I'm still a good podcast, but why, right?
Right.
So I would be the first one to admit that that's part of, let's say, my character DNA, to have that too. But I want to bring attention to the subject, not only, and with all the respect that people do in the Me Too movement, which I think is great, but in the end of the day, the attention goes a lot to actually the perpetrator, because it is a famous person who did it, right?
Oh.
So the whole politics is about him. And so we saw
that's
with Kavanaugh,
interesting,
right?
yeah.
So if he did it, you know, by all means, prosecute him, put him in jail, whatever we think we need
Sure,
to
due
do
process,
to
that
make
whole
it
bit.
right. But again, the attention was shifted very quickly from media to the victim and to the perpetrator. And what I want to do is really tell just the victim story and what you can do to change your life into that. So what I did, and it was not all premeditated, it's more afterwards I came to maybe more like a modality or a system, so you want how I think what's important. And there are two things mainly important there, is find forgiveness. Sounds very, you know, religious, but it doesn't have to be religious at all. You have to find forgiveness for yourself, but also for the one who did it to you, and that's a hard one.
Hard because you probably have to
Yeah.
do that several times
Yeah.
over and over again. In
Yeah,
other
it's-
words, it's hard to just say, okay, I forgive, and then it's done. Because
Well, you
then you
gotta
go,
get
but you know.
It's a process. Yes, it's a
Yeah.
constant work. It's not
Constant
a
work.
one-time
That's
event.
what I'm saying,
It's
yes.
Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
that's so spot on. So you have to do that over and over again. Talk with other people, and a lot of people say forgiveness is not for the other person. Forgiveness is for you. right? Find that peace in your heart. Try to stay away from the shame that you have, the guilt that you load upon yourself.
Right.
So that's one. That's a big thing. But at least what I write about mostly is, can you leverage something else to overcome that? And that something else is your passion. So in my case, or in our case, you know, dancing is a big passion for us. And I start to see, when I landed in being a dancer, which I came also in a little bit later life into dancing, I started to see that a lot of things became almost like easier. Now, dancing is a unique thing, right? After all, this is a dance podcast, so I can write about it, I can talk about it. Is dancing teach you also a lot about emotional expression? And
Very much so. Yes.
Yeah, it's
Otherwise, it looks
definitely-
mechanical out there.
Yeah, probably that's my number one topic when I teach, right? You guys know that I teach around the world. So emotional expression in dancing and how to do that is definitely something that I started to build in my dancing, but definitely also in my teaching, right? And very important in that is that you learn to express the emotion you need appropriate to what you're doing. So, I mean, you know that some of our students say, yeah, but I don't feel like it right now. I said, okay, but what has that to do with the performance that you're about to do, right? If it's social dancing, you ask me to dance and I don't feel like it, that's perfectly fine. I don't feel like dancing this dance. But when you have to do a performance like you and I did so many times, it is the emotion we want to express. And it sounds really cold and unnatural, but it's actually the contrary, right? Look at the good actors. They know how to do that.
Sure.
And it's a skill that makes you go very deep in real emotions. You know that, right? Sometimes we have to express grief, but it doesn't mean that something just died, right? That would be handy. But I could be a very happy person. But because we do that work in ourselves and we can see the emotions that we lived, right? Do you see the connection? We can actually do something with it. As a dancer, I start to see that connection. We work with other people. We start to feel, I know that from you too, we talked about it, we could actually, when we touch someone, we can feel if there's something going on in their body. We don't always talk about it, but we know it as dance teachers. So in what I'm trying to do with this book, also to open people more for those kind of things, and as a teacher, and maybe as a dance coach, transformational coach is what I call it. I hope that people, as many already did, also come from that part. Not only to learn, be an awesome Latin dancer, which I would be more than happy to help you with, by the way. This is the commercial.
Shameless plug.
But that's a big part of what I
so you do both things, and in some cases you do both, right? You are so you sometimes start. I know this about a client you were talking about who's overseas, that you started with a coach as a mental coach, and then I think he then wanted to do learn dancing.
That's true.
Yeah. And so, but I think your point is always to just find some passion. Yeah, in your life.
It could be dance, but it could also be, I don't know, knitting.
Martial arts.
Martial arts.
Because you started with martial arts.
I started with martial arts and
you were quite good too.
I was actually really good, but strangely enough, if you know, for the longest time I believed that was my passion, right? I mean I practiced it every day. I practically lived
Lots of competitions.
A lot of competitions around the world. I did very well.
What's very well? Brag, come on. I'm asking you too. Asking you too.
So I don't know. I've been national and European and world champion in
there's just those things.
So, but it's long ago, and it's just, I mean, for me that's pretty meaningless, and I'm trying not to be modest. The modesty is not even a thing that that fits me.
Yeah, I was going to say, set that over there, man.
Yes.
That doesn't fit you.
So no, I dare to say that I practiced the martial arts and I did on the highest level, but the strange thing happened to me is I was invited to I think an anniversary of a wedding, and they had a dance floor and a relatively big party, And someone asked, my girlfriend at the time said, hey, I'm so stupid that we still cannot do this social normal dances. There were foxtrots and there were, and in our time that was actually part of it. No, foxtrot I could kind of crank out a little bit, clumsy enough. And so we decided, and I was already at the late 20s, we decided to take just formal dance lessons.
Oh, wow.
And
okay.
when I stepped on the dance floor, by the way, that's also part in the book, so it's very relevant. When I stepped on the dance floor, something truly happened to me, and I didn't know what. But my whole world went upside down, and within a few weeks, I kind of decided to say, I want this. And then 2 years later, I went to my martial arts instructor saying, I kind of want to switch my career to dancing. And they said, what, dancing? What do you mean, like cha-cha-cha and stuff? I said, how did you know that Bruce Lee was actually pretty good cha-cha-cha dancing?
Is that right?
Yeah, he was Hong Kong.
Wow.
He was champion in Hong Kong cha-cha-cha. Seriously.
Really?
Seriously
Wow.
true.
So apparently there's precedence there for going from martial arts to being
There was. There was. So it's all true stories.
little
And,
known facts that you learn on
yeah.
Dance
Dancing
Teachers
Teachers
Academy.
Academy. There we go.
But here's the thing, Aimee, Jose, is that a lot of people said to me, Jean, you're way too old
To start.
to start. I mean, dancing, of course. We
But like competition or
like
teaching.
competition.
Yeah.
And, Europe did not know anything about the way we dance here, so it was all young people and hit dance floor hard. Now, first of all, I'm kind of lucky. I'm Asian, so most of people, don't guess my age right. So in a positive way. Same thing was true for my dance partner. So we just let it go.
Mm-hmm.
I remember one time I had to try out with a partner when my other partner and I were on a small breakup, and I just kind of lied 10 years down, and she never knew.
Why would it
years
matter?
later? Yeah, and so we kind of knew. I mean, I was realistic enough in being a sportsman that maybe to reach the absolute world top would be pretty impossible. Don't be delusional either, right, in these kind of things.
Yeah, the floor didn't do all that to you.
But the important thing is that if you come into things like us, dance performance, we often equate, if it's a passion, then I have to be good at it. And that's so wrong. So a lot of people, they don't pursue it anymore because they don't believe they are good enough at it. Now, we in our studio, we get all kinds of students. And
Yes.
some people that are not so good turn out to be the most passionate dancers, right?
Right.
Is that true or not?
Yes.
And we see very talented people, just really good movers, and you cannot find the passion in them, right?
And they're like, take it or leave
and you
it.
almost want to slap them. Does that make sense?
Pretty sure that's assault.
Well, let's cut that part out. And but what I want to say is, I was not hindered by any knowledge.
No, right?
So when people said you can't do it anymore, we did it anyhow. So we did reasonable well in dancing, and I very quickly started to convert myself into a dance coach. Actually, one of my friends and teachers asked me to teach when I was really a beginner dancer. And they said, you want me to teach? I said, yes, because I see you practice differently. Your mentality is differently. Can you give a mental coaching to our dancers? And so that stimulated me to study dance more, but I actually was already teaching most of the dances, still, by the way, most of the dances that I teach, better dancers than myself. Never a problem with that. Actually, I love to
Well,
work with
I can see that. I mean, if you're doing martial arts at the the very top level, then you have that drive and that commitment to focus on whatever it is, that craft that you're doing, and so yeah, I could see where that would translate easily into being able to tell somebody, hey, you need to do this and you need to do that, even though they may be actually able to do it better than you can. Yeah, so that makes sense.
That makes sense, and I think, because if you allow me, I want to go a little bit back to the book.
Let's do it.
So I saw very quickly, and then if I say it, a lot of dancers and martial artists would say, okay, we all see that, right? There's a very strong connection between the body, mind, and the soul, right? So
Yes.
I really teach and do special workshop on it to see how that is. For dancers, they often know it intuitively. So one of my life's motto is change your mind and change your dancing. And if it's a life coach, then I'd say change your mind, change your life, which is absolutely true. Most of the people cannot even know where their mind is, right? typically point to your head because that's where your brain is, but it's really one mesh of the same thing, right? And that's that the beauty is if you're really stressed in your mind, I always say relax your body. If your body's a little bit tense, do a little bit fun things in your head, and the one follows the other, right?
And that's why if you have stress, there is things that your body does to react to this stress that's in your brain. Maybe the heart races, maybe your sweat, maybe your stomach hurts. So mind-body connection is so important. I absolutely agree with you.
And most dance teachers know that, right?
Right.
Not all dance teachers necessarily have to make it their specialty to teach that in. But we know to a pretty large level actually how to deal with our students with it, right?
Yes.
But but I don't mind that, if I have students that are more into ballroom dancing, and I'm a pretty okay ballroom dancer, by the way, but there are definitely some techniques that I would love to send them to you in this case, right? Or if we maybe want to do a showcase in American Smooth, which I apparently know nothing about. So I do think that a lot of dance teachers keep it all, we need to have one student and I want to teach them everything, and that doesn't work, right? I'm just by default a little bit, I guess I dare to say that, stronger in this field. I know a lot about this just from the way I was raised as a martial artist, but also mostly because I did a lot of internalization because of what I went through. There was a lot of things going on in my mind all the time, and I was in search. I think you and I talked about it. I was just looking for the why in life. What's going on? So, for instance, a big topic: if there's a God, why does He allow a 7-year-old and all of his siblings, by the way, to be abused by the same man? Those are answers very hard to find, right? So this is why I had this natural interest in that. And so I started to build those things in my practice and said, okay, this book is a good testimony of my story maybe, which is great. But the matter of the fact is that any passion that you have can be locked to overcome any trauma or ordeals that you have. But let's not only look at it from a negative point of view, right? Let's say you don't have any traumas or any ordeals in your life, which is practically impossible. But but say that, right? Say that you're only...
Or maybe not to that magnitude.
Not to that magnitude. Still is... And that sounds bold, maybe people hate me for it, but I still think that a lot of people live a pretty mediocre life. They settle for way less than you can settle for in life. And so... I mean, you can actually find research for it. After mid-20, people start to lose their passion. A lot of people.
Mid-20s?
Yeah, and that number is around 80%. Because then they become career-focused.
Oh, okay, I see. Yeah.
You see that?
Yeah,
and
I see where you're going.
And then if you talk to them later in life, you have heard that many times, as I have, man, you guys have an awesome life. I wanted to be a dancer too. And then we always say, why don't you? Why don't you?
Yeah. I have an open time slot.
Yeah, there's a book, I forgot the name of the author, I can find it up, but it's maybe not so relevant. If you ask someone on their deathbed, it's really happy podcast today. But they seldom regret things they did. But they so often regret the things that they didn't do. That's absolutely true.
That is absolutely true.
That's absolutely true, right?
I wish I could have done this. Wish I could have done that.
When I was traveling, and people come up with more these and doesn't always have these big things like solving. What did we say this week in the studio? World hunger, and then my student said, "I'm very hungry."
Yes. So you really haven't solved it.
Yeah. So, but it doesn't have to be these big topics. Now, my topic now has become, and so the passion is in the dance, right? But I also became very passionate in, I started a non-profit called a Dancers Movement to Stop Sexual Abuse, right? Now, I know that's a very lofty goal, and that's an understatement of the day.
But you have to start.
But you have to start, right?
Every little bit helps.
Yeah, and I believe, and it's because I'm a dancer, I called it the Dancers Movement.
You have a co-organizer?
Yeah, I have a co-organizer, co-founder of the movement, and that's my dance partner.
Does that person have a name?
That person has a name. It's Irene Martens. Unfortunately, she's also a victim of sexual abuse. She was a student, is now my dance partner.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we spend almost every time together talking about this stuff, or we dance. So it truly is a thing driven by my passion.
Mm-hmm.
But we also found out that actually in a lot of dancers, in our field at least,
Mm-hmm.
the topic that I talk about is pretty big. We kind of suspect that it's higher than the average, and especially among boys.
So maybe dancers turn to dance,
turn to this thing
to heal,
without knowing
Uh-huh.
to heal. Like
Yeah.
me, I'm a very
maybe a place first to get
yeah,
lost,
we
and
would
then
say maybe I'm a very feminine woman. A man. I mean, I wanna express myself all the time, and I got either hindered or helped by what I've been through. But dancing definitely allowed me to do that without having weird labels on there, right?
gotcha.
So,
Okay.
so that's
That
important.
other fields might
Yeah,
be.
And so that's partly a commercial, but I'm super proud of it. This part is that some of pretty famous dancers in the world actually caught on to what we were doing. So one of the stories that I like to tell is I had a documentary from a friend was sent to me, and it was about sexual abuse. It was her personal story, and I was opening it, but it was in Finnish, and I don't know if you know anything about the Finnish language. There's we cannot make anything of it. So, and there was no subtitles. It was a very small documentary, like a podcast like this. So, I thought, who do I know from Finland that can help me a little bit with this? So I wrote to two dancers, Jukka Hapalainen and Sirpa Sutari. Now, if you're a ballroom dancer in international ballroom and Latin dancing, you know who I'm talking about. Seriously. World champions, professionals, Blackpool champions,
Somebody.
So those are somebody. Right? So I just boldly wrote them a message saying, hey, this is this, what do you think about it? And by the way, I wrote a book on the topic, and immediately got a response saying, Jean, it's like, we were thinking about what we could do in our world on this topic, and now you're right about it.
Wow.
It's like wow, how did
God
that
thing.
happen? I said, let's meet in Blackpool. Now, everyone said, okay. I thought, I was super excited to meet them, but Blackpool is always busy. You don't have time to talk to people. Everyone's dressed up. So this is a true story, and it's a funny story, because as I walked out after the last competition of the professionals, right, Arunas became champion again for the 15th time, I think. We walked outside through the back door to our hotel. I know, because they're famous dancers, I don't think he remembered he judged me once when I was in a smaller competition where we became the champion. But that's as far as I know Jukka Hapalainen, right? So, but we walked, and I saw him walking because we couldn't talk the whole event, and it was pouring rain. And I said, hey, Jukka. I said, oh, yeah, no, I know you. And he stopped me, and he started to talk about it, how important this was in the streaming rain. So we connect more. So that's one good story. And just for the sake of name dropping.
Well, that's a big name.
Yeah, it's a big name. And another couple that at least wrote a review of the book is Michael Malatovsky and Joanna Leunis. So, and those are the ultimate Latin Blackpool champions for 7 years in a row. For the last 2 years, Ricardo Cocchi won it, but before that. So, super proud. Joanna, I know since we were kids on the floor. I was not so much a kid, but she was a kid. And
we found out about you.
Yeah, but so yeah, it's a little bit of name dropping, but I hope it helps to get attention also to this topic. And
yes, I think this is really important, because there's so many people that say, I am outraged by childhood sexual abuse, by sexual abuse, or any kind of, attack on men or women. Oh, I'm just furious about this. So what can I do? So I just think that is so important that it doesn't matter who you are, big name, person that maybe you think that you can't do anything. I think yes, you can. And so this is great. So this is one of the reasons we wanted you here, because first of all, we can do something about it. And the first thing is, and we've talked about this before, we have to start talking about it. And then
that's the number one.
Yes. And how can we reach people? And so in this way, it's so great to say, we'll definitely put the title on.
Certainly.
If this is something that's happened to you, please be inspired by this book and know that your life can be different.
Yeah, we actually
and Jean
created
is an example.
we created a platform for it. So we took it way further than we initially actually were planning to do. Initially, we were just planning to just publish the book and see what comes out of it. But then with Irene, that I already mentioned, so we were talking. I mean, we still remember we just were after or before practice, and we said, we need to create a platform where people can tell their story, and not to blame someone, just tell your story, put it out there. You can do that with mentioning your name, or you can do it anonymously. So that's up to you. So she came up with the title. Wow, what if if there's it was after discussion, but Irene actually came to the title. If you tell your story, there's actually one less story to tell. What if we could create something that actually plays on that, right? One less story to tell.
Oh, I love that.
Tell your story,
Yeah.
so there's one less story to tell.
Mm-hmm.
So we made a website of onelesstotell.org. It's
nice.
connected to adensesmovement.org.
Awesome.
And it's just meant to do that. It's not meant to do anything else than just give a platform.
Mm-hmm.
And it keeps a counter, how many stories there are. There are 2, mainly hers and mine.
Interesting. Yeah.
But hopefully that we wanted to keep it simple at the same time but powerful, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Because it is so true. I wrote it in a book, so yeah, it's one less story to tell. Broke the silence of my own story, and she did too.
And for someone who was a victim, that is important to break the silence first.
That is the first time they know how to break the silence, and then we give them guidance in the book. But you can go to a coach or a therapist.
Yes.
Then definitely.
I like that your book is not just telling your story, but a guidance. Yeah, and so that's so important. So if someone said, "Oh, I wish there's something I can do. I have a friend that," or I have, anyway, here's this book.
So you can come to the organization or me as a coach. That's all good.
Yes.
But it gives also tips what you can do yourself into it. Well, I would not recommend you to do it all by yourself.
Right.
But posting the story is not only important for you when you post a story, but it also kind of, I don't think that people really are aware how big this is. And this is only the numbers that we know.
Right.
So of course, as a victim, I'm a little bit more wound up by the fact, but I can almost not understand that we don't do anything about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's also hard to do something about it, to be honest, because normally you find out after the fact.
Right.
So the other part we do is education.
Mm-hmm.
So we have special women self-defense classes. So there is and it's actually more a body and mind connecting class, but you learn some awesome move, how to throw a punch if you think that's important.
Cool.
But that's more the cool. That's more the
think
cool.
it's important.
But it's more the mental mindset,
Sure.
right? So because you also have to address, think about how commercials are on TV. I'm not now trying to write a moral high ground or stuff like that, but a lot of young women think they have to portray themselves in a certain way to be accepted, which is not okay. Or, do you know what I mean? The
Right.
scantily clad in the wrong way. And so we try to educate them too that you can be absolutely sensual, clothed without being trashy, right?
Yes.
Does that
Right,
make
right.
sense?
Yes.
So we do
I
programs
think
like
that's
that
good
too.
too. Yes.
Right.
I call it women empowerment. So there are several layers that we started to build in over time, and the book is just a launch of that part. I'm very proud of it. We hope to do a lot in the dancing as well. One of my personal wishes, we're probably getting close to the end, but one of my personal wishes is to make a dance out of my story.
Oh.
So
cool.
we have contacted a choreograph, and he's willing to support us. And it's again a little bit matter of funding. The book was not a cheap endeavor, to be honest. But
you did it. I'm so proud of you. You completed it.
We'll do that. Well, and I hope that I'm still strong enough to dance it myself too. But that's the next plan, because after all, it is a dancer's story. And I hope that we as a dancers group, it's such a beautiful art after all, let's not forget that, right?
Right.
And I may, you and I think about it exactly the same here. We don't dance for ourselves. We have a lot of fun in it, but when we perform, we first and foremost always dance for someone else.
For the audience.
That's for the audience.
Otherwise, you're self-obsessed, right? Do that. Do that in a disco somewhere.
It's a gift.
Still a word, by the way.
It's a club.
It's a club.
But yeah, it's
Shake
a
it up
gift
at the
we're
club,
giving
right.
We
to
give
the
them,
audience.
it's
And that's
all-
why the saying is, if you see a couple dancing, and I've said that when we watch, I go, oh my gosh, she just left her heart
Yes,
out on the
on the
floor.
floor. We love
For
that.
us, it's like you're giving a gift of, your expression.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, I do. And you saw in the last performance, some of my students, they literally come to me because they want to express something a little bit beyond what they normally express. So I'm happy with the students that are, bold enough to do that.
Yes, I have exceptionally good hearing, is a little secret of mine. And so I hear conversations. So I have my mother's ears. She could hear like things from another room.
More
I
scary
could whisper
for us.
something. I would whisper something in the other room, and she'd go, I heard that. But so I did overhear you having a conversation. I don't think it was a secret anyway, but I wasn't trying to eavesdrop. But you were talking to one of your students about the culture of your family and the culture she came from, and you said, well, that we are trained to not express our feelings. Do you know the conversation I'm talking about?
Asian families often have that. We always walk around with a smile, and then for people with that same cultural background to want to express more, that's huge. I think it's huge, to be honest. If I can do this as a dance teacher, I feel a super blessed person. So strangely enough, it's probably true for you, I didn't even go in this trade for the dance steps. I literally went in the trade hopefully that one day we could do things like we do now. So that's what it is. And of course my story drives that a little bit stronger, but hopefully you don't have to go through all this to
of course
see
not.
these things that I'm talking about, right?
Read the book; it's easier on you.
Yeah, read the book. It's not. It's not an easy read, but it is a relatively quick read. You can read through it in 4 or 5 hours. Seriously, yeah. So I would not recommend to immediately do that, because it might stir you up if you're a victim.
You might have to
maybe
take
it'll-
it piece by piece.
You
right?
might take piece by piece, but
It gives you the courage to come out on your own.
and if you there are numbers in there people that you can reach out to, like
Nice.
Rain
Good.
is in the book, but you can also of course contact the organization with
For help.
at dancersmovement.org, and we'll
Wonderful.
give you directions where to go to that as well. So it's not just dropping a story and then leave it there. Actually, for me, and my publisher too, by the way, my publisher said, Jean, your book that's not the end, right? That should be the beginning of your new story
So
or whatever.
interesting. Yeah,
Sure,
yeah,
right,
yeah.
right.
Very good.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Jean Dorff, we're not going to keep you any longer, man. I know you're a busy man. Thank you for showing up this afternoon.
Thank you for having me. It was
All
a
right.
pleasure and an honor.
Thank you so much, and thank you for helping the people, starting with writing your book, telling your story, and giving them some answers. That's always great, helping
Yeah,
people.
I
Thank
like
you.
the idea that you have some procedural things to do.
Love you,
And
both.
information. The lovely May.
Jose, thank you.
All right. Well, folks, this has been another episode of Dance Teachers Academy. Thank you for watching.